Hi guys, something a little bit different today. I will be reviewing this Casio GMW-B5000GD-1DR. So this is the black metal square Casio. Now you may be wondering why I'm reviewing this watch on this photography channel, but I figured a lot of people that like cameras also like watches. And in addition, there's not too many other reviews of this particular model, although there are a few of the different colored, like the silver or the gold one out there. So anyway, if you're thinking of getting this black version, hurry because, stocks are running kind of low, I guess, in shops. But they are available, although they are kind of expensive. So let's just run through some of its features and compare it with a couple of other watches. Okay, so very quickly, some of the features. You got your world time. You've only got 5 time zones here. Although with the app, you've got actually 300 cities. And this watch does work with the app quite nicely. So there's that. There's the alarm, standard fare, 5 alarms, snooze alarm. Stopwatch. Now this is kind of cool because it actually displays the time in the stopwatch. Timer, again, it displays the time, and then we're back to the home screen. Now that's your standard fare. There's nothing like massively unusual here, although there are a couple of things which are quite a nice touch. Now I've also got this not the GMW, this is the GW5000. Yeah, this is the GW5000. This was the previous Grail square watch that people used to want to collect. So both of these are in the higher end price bracket of regular G-Shocks. So these aren't Frogmen or Mud Masters which have additional functionality. These are your standard basic models. And, the original G-Shock design kind of looked like this. It was a square design. So as you can see, both of these have a screw back design, and they are kind of similar in that regard. Okay, so they're both screw back designs. The case is DLC coated. Now that doesn't mean it's impervious to scratches. You can scratch them. However, they are kind of tough, and that, of course, being coated, they're going to be slightly resistant to rust. Now, of these, which one do I like better? Definitely this one. The reason being, it's just got better functionality, and if you ask me, it also kind of looks cooler, although this one, being more rubberized, is going to be tactical, I guess you could say. Like, because this is shiny, it's going to stick out a little bit more. And if you're going to do sports, I wouldn't want to, as funny as it sounds, I wouldn't want to scratch this up or damage this, although you probably wouldn't be able to damage this. This one would probably take a beating a little bit better, or rather it's going to be less painful on the wallet should you damage it. It's just rubberized. It's not going to lose its shine because rubber doesn't really shine. Okay? But anyway, let's talk about some of the differences. This one, world time, it's got like a whole load of different cities pre-programmed in. Okay? This is pretty cool. I kind of like the fact that it's got all of the world time zones already in there, because I don't really like the fact that this watch is dependent on something else for that particular functionality. However, I can see the benefits of both. It's not really a massive game changer. They're both solar powered. They both have multi-band 6, although in the country where I'm living, I don't get radio reception, hence why the times are slightly out. This is okay on this one though, because with the app it syncs the time with the internet, making sure you've got correct time, whereas this one it doesn't do that. It's no big deal. Casios are generally pretty accurate, and even though it's running a little bit fast, I actually like watches running a tiny little bit fast, because that means you're going to be in places on time. As far as other features, the stopwatch on the metal one is better because it shows you the time. Like if you start this stopwatch here, and then like say for example you're timing your dinner or something, you cannot see the regular time, which is slightly annoying, whereas with this one you can. Okay, so that's a really cool feature of the newer watch compared to the older one. And in fact, the annoying thing is a lot of the cheaper Casios have that particular feature where you know, you can actually see the time with the stopwatch running and the timer running, whereas the solar powered ones generally don't have that, apart from, well, it turns out this one. So I like that feature on this GMW compared to the G5000. It makes it a hell of a lot more practical. Other features, well, it's about wearability at the end of it. They both fit obviously quite well. Let's compare it with another watch. Let's compare it with this one, because this is also a braceleted watch. Now there are differences between both of these watches. Of course, this one being a Pro Trek and this one being a Square G Shock. This one has, weirdly enough, sapphire glass and this one doesn't. I would quite like sapphire glass in this, but it doesn't come with it. It's not the end of the world. You know, I would say at this price point it doesn't really make a difference. However, you're spending around £500, so I think it kind of does. It would have been nice. This was, I think, actually around the same type of price, but it's a completely different type of watch. Just holding it and weighing it, the Pro Trek is a lot lighter because it's made out of titanium. The bracelet is anyway, and the case is resin. Now, for an outdoors watch, that's perfectly acceptable, and it's so light you barely can notice that you're wearing it. Just like this one, in stopwatch mode, you can see the time, and in timer mode you can as well. So this is actually, I would say, has the superior module over this. However, I think this watch looks a little bit cooler, and being much heavier, it's got that heft to it. And I kind of like watches with a little bit of heft. Okay. In terms of the actual finish, you probably can't tell, but the Pro Trek titanium is a lot shinier. This one, the bracelet is a little bit matte, but the bezel is a little bit shinier than the bracelet is. Whereas this is kind of shiny all the way through. And it wears differently, okay, and I'll show you those on the wrist in a second. I've also got this one just to show you a size comparison with a standard G Shock, and it is a little bit smaller than your standard G Shock. Okay. Now, interesting that I mentioned about the weight, because I also have this Marine Master, and when I pick both of these up, it feels about the same weight, which is crazy when you think about it, because this is a big old chunky watch. However, this is made out of titanium. Titanium itself is quite light, and of course it's got a rubber strap. However, it's a hefty old watch, and this is just as hefty as that, but it kind of makes it feel heavier because it's sort of more dense. It's just got all of its mass concentrated in the center. And in fact, rumor has it, I've not tested this because I haven't got a set of scales handy, but apparently it's the same mass as a Rolex Submariner, which is pretty cool. Right, now I got some skinny wrists, but I'll show you what it looks like on my wrists. So my wrists are 6.5 inches, and as you can see, it wears pretty well. Let me see if I can focus it slightly better. Okay, so it wears quite nicely on the wrist. As you can see, I've got it kind of tight. It's got like an adjustment down here where you've got 3 more levels of adjustment where I can make it slightly looser. But like this, it's not going to move around on the wrist. This is kind of what it looks like. I like it, it's pretty cool. Now, On to other differences in comparison to the G5000. What's interesting here is that if you place the GMW next to the GW5000, like so, you can see the GW5000 is actually a tiny little bit taller. Now, when according to the manufacturer's specifications, it should be exactly the same. So why is it taller? Well, this particular watch I've had for many years now. It must be like 8 years. And as with all resin watches, resin actually stretches. So let me demonstrate like here, okay? You see that top of the watch there? If you squeeze it down, it compresses slightly. So what's happened is over time the resin has stretched a little bit, and it's made that difference that you can see right here. And this is one of the reasons why G-Shocks always look cooler in the shop. Like it looks really, really cool in the shop, and then you buy them and it's cool for a little while, and then over time you look at it and it kind of loses its, I guess, its shine a little bit. I mean, they're very like functional watches still, but what happens is when you see it in the shop and it's all fresh, they look more like this black one here, this GMW, purely because it's tighter. Do you know what I mean? Now, of course, this it being made out of metal, it's not going to sort of lose its shape as much as the resin one, and for that reason alone, it's sort of like superior. Although having said that, resin is meant to be like a what's it called? Like a reusable part kind of thing, you know, like not reusable, replaceable. It's meant to be replaceable. However, I like to wear watches and make it last. So, and I'm sure many people that buy G-Shocks just keep the original resin. And it's only after about 25 years or so, or if, say, for example, the strap rips, that's when people generally tend to replace it. But as you can see, when I put them side by side like this, the GMW, the new one, does look kind of a little bit tighter, a little bit crisper, a little bit newer, and I like that. I like the fact that it looks newer, you can say. But you know, like having said that, it is a newer watch, but I think it'll look newer for longer than this one did, for sure. Also, another thing which I almost forgot to mention is if you have a look at the buttons themselves. In fact, let's get a closer up look. Okay, if you have a look at the buttons, the GMW, which is over here, the button is a lot bigger, and also what with not having the resin surrounding it, like if you have a look at the G5000 here, the resin kind of makes the button countersunk. That's the adjust button. So let's have a look at one of the other buttons. Can you imagine like pressing that little thing there with your fingernail? Let's get that focus working here. It becomes like kind of tricky to press the buttons after a while, whereas with the GMW you're not going to have the full metal square, you're not going to have the same kind of issues, okay, because there's no resin to contract around it, and they are exposed on the bottom end. So can you see it's not actually like surrounded entirely with resin or with anything at all, so you can actually get your finger right in there and press the buttons a little bit better. So it has a few like really cool features like exclusive to this. Since I've got my macro lens running here, let's have a look at a couple of other things. Here you can see the clasp micro adjustments are on this side up here. Okay, push button release of the clasp. Here you can see the the screw back case. Now compare it with like a plate case back, like this has. It's a metal plate screwed into resin. Now if you keep screwing and unscrewing metal into resin over time, the theory is that the screws are going to become loose. And also if you give this a big enough whack, the plate can come off, theoretically, right? Whereas with the same force on a screw back, it ought to be a little bit more secure. And that's why G-Shocks, which are screw backs, hold their value a lot more than G-Shocks with a plate back, okay? What else can I say about this? It's got an STN display, but it's a negative display. Now, STN, this one has an STN as well. They've got like a really good angle of view. Like, so if you tilted it like that, you can still see it, whereas other displays would conk out a little bit. You end up seeing all the display segments. With this, it's kind of okay. And finally, I'll leave you with a couple more wrist shots. I've got obviously the 5000 here and the GMW-B5000 on this wrist. I don't necessarily think it looks metal, because they did release like zombie colors, which was like shiny resin, and the shiny resin kind of had this look almost, but I don't mind as long as I know it's metal. It's all good. The bracelet is beautiful. It's nice and thick, nice and hefty. It's not going to be as hard wearing as something like this. When I say hard wearing, as in terms of taking like a punishment, like a resin strap. But you know, it is what it is. Okay, that's pretty nice. Let's compare it with a couple other watches. This is your 6900. Okay, standard G-Shock kind of thing. Lots of people have this. This is your basic size of G-Shock, pretty much. And you can see the size difference there. It's only a little bit smaller, actually. It's not too much of a difference. Okay, let's try another watch. Here is the Pro Trek. It's a different look. You know, this one is more for outdoor trekking use. Of course, it's called a Pro Trek, and of course the G-Shock. I wouldn't go so far as to call it a dress watch, but it's about as dressy as a G-Shock can get. It's going to be your standard, you know, like jeans, leather jacket, t-shirt kind of attire will go very well with this. Whereas this is obviously more of an outdoors practical kind of a watch. Got much more functionality, this one, but you know, I like that one. Now we've got another G-Shock here. This is the Frogman. I forget which model exactly, but it's a screw back. Now on my skinny wrists, it might look a little strange, but I have used this whilst snorkeling, and it is beautiful. It really is. I'd say on the beach, the Frogman for sure, particularly in these flashy colours. On the beach, this one would be my choice. However, having said that, this will do just fine in the water as well and on the beach. Interestingly enough, I would recommend this over the stainless steel version, purely because theoretically it ought to be more rust resistant. Let me explain why. With stainless steel, it's rust resistant, but it's not rust proof. Now, if you go into water, particularly salt water, and you come out, what happens is the water is going to be trapped inside of the bezel. Now, the case is going to be okay because it's coated in DLC, diamond-like carbon, or whatever they call it. So the case is okay, but the actual bezel itself would be stainless steel. And yes, if the water gets trapped, it could cause corrosion. It could cause corrosion in this as well, but this plating on the, I'm assuming it's on the inside as well, should give it that extra little bit more rust resistance. So what I would say is, if you're taking it into the sea, dry it off with a hairdryer as well. I don't know if that's recommended or not, but you want to get that thing completely dry. I just spat on my watch there. Brand new watch, and I just spat on it. What's wrong with me? But anyway, there we go. You know, like, I'm not very keen on opening up the watch, taking the bezel off, drying it. You could, but I don't have the tools for that, so I don't, and also I don't want to sort of like mess with my screwdriver and scratch my watch. So use a hairdryer. It's probably better. Anyway, that's compared to the Frogman, which is pretty cool in itself. I like that Frogman. It's nice. I'm wearing this on the wrong wrist. It's meant to be on the left, but yeah, I've got the GMW here. Okay, let's try another watch. Okay, now we've got the Seiko Diver, the Marine Master spring drive tuner. I love that watch. This watch is cool as hell. And weirdly enough, I think I can pull it off even with my skinny 6.5-inch wrists. It doesn't look too bad. In fact, it looks cool as hell. It's a totally different type of watch. It looks a hell of a lot more expensive than the Casio. And that's because it is a hell of a lot more expensive than the Casio. It's got that beautiful sweep second hand. But having said that, I wear my Casios a lot more than I do this. Because it's slimmer, it's low profile, you can easily wear it with shirt and tie. Whereas with this one, it's definitely more of a tool watch. You know, it's kind of, you couldn't wear it in the office. You'd have to be you know, out and about wearing casual clothing with this. Or if you're a professional diver, it'd be perfectly acceptable. I'm not though, I can barely swim. So yeah, there we are. So that's it for the GMW-B5000DR. I think it's a beautiful watch. If you're thinking about one, I'd highly recommend it. Yeah, it's a solid watch. Thank you very much for watching. If you want more watch reviews like any of the other watches which I had out today, if you want some reviews of that, leave a comment below. But this is really a photography channel. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.